I could possibly rerun the start of last week's show where I think I opened to the vein of big commits coming to the Canes, except maybe it's even bigger commits coming to the Canes. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, setting you up with Miami football talk as we do each and every week with the Cam Underwood from State of the U. Cam, we appreciate you each and every week, obviously making this show happen. And I know that you love coming on when you've got some big and breaking news to deliver to a certain extent.
Yeah, man. Good to be here. I look a little cleaner this week. I messed up shaping my mustache like a couple weeks ago, so I had to grow it out for like a while because my facial hair doesn't grow fast. That's why I was looking kind of raggedy. So finally just shaved it down this morning. Feeling myself, looking pretty good. Feeling pretty good. And yeah, man, another big commit. Even larger than the last one and larger than the one before that and larger than the one before that. This is the biggest one that we've had this cycle, just to lead off the show. So yeah, Tuesday night, James Williams, 5-star All-American safety from American Heritage, who has previously played at Monsignor Pace and Heritage and Western, and then back to Heritage now, committed to Miami. He's a top 5 or 10 player in this class. He's the number 1 or 2 player in the state of Florida. Number 1 in Florida, number 1 safety overall. He's gigantic. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. And he's been that big since like 8th or 9th grade. He's always been in that 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" range since he made his way up to the high school level. So people have talked about him potentially moving to outside back or even defensive end, just because, if you're 6'4", 195 pounds as a freshman, you figure, whoa, this kid's going to be Greg Russo sized. But he's long maintained James Williams. When anybody said that he's going to move down closer to the box or closer in the line of scrimmage, that he says, no, I'm a safety. That's it. I want to be Sean Taylor, an even larger Sean Taylor, larger athlete physically, because Sean Taylor was like 6'3", 220. So yeah, this guy's same weight, but 2 inches taller and probably going to get heavier. But he's everybody's All-American. He's the prototype. I mean, he's better than the prototype, because the prototype, you can say, okay, 6'3", 210 pounds, because you don't expect to get guys 6'5", 6'6" at safety. So yeah, he's even larger than that. Uncommonly talented, uncommon size in the positive way of those words. And Tuesday night, he made the night happen. So I went over to my local taqueria to get my normal Taco Tuesday dinner, which I've religiously done every Tuesday night, pretty much. And I come back and I was on the phone with a friend of mine and we're just chopping it up. And I look on Twitter, I go, wait, well, I gotta go. They're like, well, I was like, I got to turn to a sports blogger right now. They're like, well, I was like, yeah, no, I got to go. Because, I stepped out for a minute and then all of a sudden, James Williams is back in the class. And that's huge. I mean, literally and figuratively. James Williams is the kind of player that Miami's not gotten recently. He's the kind of player that, Georgia, his other named finalist, that everybody thought he was going to. All of the crystal ball predictions said he's going to Georgia. That's the kind of player that Georgia comes and gets, LSU comes and gets, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, whomever comes down to South Florida and plucks out the top of the recruiting base. They're not going to get everybody. You're going to have really good players come to Miami, but those teams would always come in and vulture at the top of the pickings. And for Miami to secure a James Williams, it's just absolutely massive. Shout out to Ephraim Bonda, tweeted out a picture or a GIF video of a bartender serving up drinks because he was once the manager of a bar, and opposing fans will say, oh yeah, the bartender, he missed out on whoever, the bartender. Blah, blah. So he put up the GIF. It was like serving up the haters. And I was like, yo, talk your stuff, because you got Avante Williams away from Florida. Everybody thought he was going to Florida. You get James Williams. You get Cam Kinchins before that. I mean, just the recruiting at safety has been elite. And that's Ephraim Bonda, 100%. Obviously, there's other coaches who have been involved. Stephen Field with the Northwestern guys, because he went to Northwestern and coached at Northwestern. You have Manny Diaz in with James Williams, just because when you're going to get a player of this caliber, you're going to have the head coach involved in this recruitment. But a lot of the credit goes to Ephraim Bonda. So shout out to him. But yeah, this is this is just the latest commit from a blue chip player from the local area. He's one of the best ones around in the country. Again, a top 10 rated player overall in this recruiting class. You cannot speak highly enough about the job that was done to get James Williams back in this class. So if you're looking at the last few commitments in a row, you have Romello Brinson, All-American from Miami Northwestern, whose video had my voice in it. And then after that, you get, what's his name? Who went next? Cam Kinchens from Northwestern, and then Jabari Ishmael from Columbus, and then James Williams. That's 4-star, 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 5-star from Miami Northwestern, Miami Columbus, and then, I mean, James Williams lives in Opelika, but he goes to American Heritage. Yo, you know what I mean? I mean, if you're talking about recruiting local, boom, that's that. If you're talking about getting elite players to stack on top of elite players, boom, that's that. If you're talking about relationships over time being the thing that pays off, boom, there's that. And you can look back to Avante Williams, who openly said, yeah, it was the relationship with the coaches at Miami that made me the most comfortable. And an anecdote that goes on top of that with James Williams, he was actually up in Georgia last weekend supporting his cousin at an event in College Park. So everybody's like, oh, okay, cool. He's up there, you know, around the Georgia campus. He maybe went over there, again, not on a visit, but I mean, you can still walk around the campus. So you're still, wow, okay, this is another time of him being up in Georgia. All the dots are connected, follow the visits. He's up there doing this, saying that, blah, 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 blah. 2 days later, fam, called Miami in the morning. Manny Diaz put up the tweet, apparently, of the eyeball emoji while I was getting out or going out and getting tacos. I missed it, but he put that up a couple minutes before James Williams dropped his tweet. Yo, work was done. So, yeah, and especially with the close proximity to another time that he was up there in Georgia, it's a massive, massive, massive recruiting win. Just massive.
Yeah, so this is what I think of, and you're going to be able to elaborate on this so much more, is that, yes, the player on the field and what he is potentially and most likely going to be, you know, it's not a 100% certainty, but it's a strong likely that he's going to be an all-ACC / All-America type player. Okay, so the win on the field is paramount, the impact on the field. But beyond that, the juice it gives the program, the juice it gives the staff, the mojo, the confidence to go into the next place, and then obviously the attention that it gets and the implications or influence to other high-level players to say something must be going on there. I got to give them a better look. And if he's going there, then, yeah, that must be the place to be.
But then again, it's not just James Williams. Again, Jabari Ishmael, 4-star All-American, 6'5", 215-pound defensive end. Before that, Cam Kinchens, one of the best safeties in America from Miami Northwestern. 5'11", 205. Then before that, Romello Brinson, 4-star All-American wide receiver, Miami Northwestern. If you look back at all the recent run of commitments, each and every one of them has been that kind of commitment where, just like you're talking about, hey, yo, maybe I need to pay attention, because it's not just, now this is the biggest of them, okay, but all of them in the recent run have been, wow, Romello Brinson? Okay. Oh, Cam Kinchens? Okay. Whoa, Jabari Ishmael? Each and every one has been that kind of thing. So, yeah, Miami is on, I mean, NBA Jam level fire. You know what I mean? He's heating up. He's on fire. Like, yo, I mean, everywhere that we go, everything that we've done, and it's really spun forward from this signing day. I mean, it really started off with Avante Williams, and that is not a thing that was a short-run recruitment. That was a thing where Avante Williams personally said, this is a 4-year relationship, because he committed to Miami the spring of his freshman year, the same day that his cousin, Lorenzo Lingard, as a high school junior at that time, committed to Miami. So this is a connection that he's had with these coaches. Even when Avante Williams decommitted, Miami stayed the course, you know, and just said, cool, that's all right. That's okay. We're going to be here. We're still going to talk. We're going to communicate. We're going to let you know that this is the place for you to be. And if you choose to go somewhere else, hey, all right, I understand it, but I think that this is the best place for you. So that whole 4 years worth of recruiting going forward paid off. And then you're seeing stacking of other players ever since signing day is hit. And it's even a longer list than just those 4. But yeah, I mean, this momentum has been going for a while. Obviously, these relationships have started to bear fruit. There has I think, been maybe part of the pandemic playing a role here, where maybe guys do want to stay home, or they, see, okay, like, yeah, I could go these other places, but I want to be here. I want to be around my family and things like that. Maybe just that the changing world perception has opened their minds up in ways, but also the staff is selling ice to Eskimos. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. You have a 6 and 7 season, like we talked about last week, and everything. Like, there are things on the field, structurally and foundationally and performance-wise with this program, that every team in America can negative recruit against. Did you see the game against FIU? Because I did. You want to go play there? You see the game against Duke? You see the game against Virginia Tech where they spotted them 35 points in the first quarter? That was pretty terrible. Did you see the bowl game where they're the only team who got shut out in any bowl game this last year? There's plenty of things where you can negative recruit, but this staff is saying, I don't care about that. That's fine. And again, recruiting is like dating. It'd be like, okay, well, she has a preference of a guy who's 6'5". I'm 5'10", but I'm confident. So I'm going to go over there. I'm going to buy her a drink. I'm going to chat her up. Everything cool. I'm going to get the number. I'm going to be authentic to myself, because that is the biggest thing. And I think that's what the staff is doing. And you're seeing with all of these commitments and all of these blue chip players. I mean, you got to have 60, 70% of this class blue chip. And then if you take, the kicker in this class, Andres Borregales from Hollywood Chaminade Madonna, he's the #1 ranked kicker in this class. So by Corn Blue Kicking, Cole's Kicking, and the other kicking service, all 3 kicking services that are worth their salt in the world of kicking, he's a 5-star All-American, #1 rated recruit. So even the specialists that you get, okay, in terms of everybody, he's going to be rated a 5-star. But in terms of what he does, he's the #1 5-star. He's a 3-star in consideration of every position, a 5-star in consideration of kicking. So for me, that's even raising the level of blue chip anyway. You know what I mean? Like, this staff right now, they're on a heater and they're not getting up from the table. So, hey, just keep dealing, because I'm going to keep cashing in.
It's a point that kind of breaks up the mojo of this conversation, but I wonder why that can't be adjusted. Why wouldn't we adjust the specialist rating to rate them in line with everybody else? If you get the top kicker in the country, he's probably a 5-star.
Right. I mean, but it's just a thing where you're talking about, positional value, I guess, or, just in terms of like, okay, he's only going to play 7 snaps, but like we saw last year and the year before, you have a kicker that's not able to do the job, you get some L's. Hey, look, even Alabama, in the run of losses that they've had, which is not many, you can pretty much point to the kicker not getting the job done. So, yeah, maybe that would be a thing, but yeah.
Yeah, and just to belabor the point, yeah, there are typically 20 to 25 field goals attempted by any particular kicker in FBS, and you got guys hitting like 22 of 25, and you got other guys hitting like 14 of 25. It's a huge difference.
Fewer like Bubba Baxa at Miami. You know what I mean? Like, we can go there. Like, you don't have to look far. We can look into the rearview mirror from last year when, Bubba Baxa was quite poor and then got yanked off of that because he wasn't even hitting that amount of kicks. So, yeah.
So, Cam, this is where it's good to be the U in terms of location. So if we're talking about the recruiting woes and the recent struggles of Nebraska, I'll point them out in particular. It's we're losing football games and we don't have football players around us. We've got a heavy lift. It's good to be located where you are.
Yeah, and it's funny because Nebraska, to address the issue of lack of talent, came down to Miami or South Florida to get a couple of guys, Jaden Francois, who should have picked Miami, and that he did it to himself. Henry Gray, who was committed to Miami, my former personal student when I taught at Miramar before he transferred to Miami Central, and a couple other guys to go up there. Gray and Francois have both since transferred out of Nebraska. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of a thing. But yeah, look, we got more players down here that you can shake a stick at. And even guys who were 3-stars, not saying that they would be a 5-star anywhere else, but a guy like D. Wiggins, played pretty well, had a touchdown against Florida State to open that game up, things like that. Mike Harley was a 3-star, from down here. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas. You got guys from down here. Danny Isadora in years ago. Yeah, he was a 5-year player at offensive line. Jonathan Feliciano from Western High School. Isadora went to Cypress Bay at the time. You got plenty of guys who are not necessarily going to be 5 stars, but they can play at this level and they can be, good rotation level, starting level players down the line. Maybe not a year 1 or a year 2, but as a redshirt sophomore in their 3rd year and things like that, they can finally get there. Hey, it took him 5 years, but Robert Knowles, and if you've been following, look, when he had to play in year 3 and 4 for him, it was not great. And I was very critical. But in year 5, everyone's like, oh, yeah, Knowles this, Knowles that. Go back and watch that film. He actually played pretty well. It just took him a while to get to that level. And he was a 3-star. You know what I mean? And he was forced into maybe a little bit of a bigger role too early for what his skill set was. But he's a guy who last year, seriously, go back and look. And I did my darndest to tweet it out every single time because I had been so vocally critical previously. When he started doing the job to the level that was required, I try to say, hey, Robert Knowles made this play. Robert Knowles made this play. So even if you get 3 stars, they can be part of the roster. But yeah, I mean, a guy from Miami, Edison. Not many top recruits come from Edison. But yeah, like you're talking about, there are many places where that Miami can go and look for Miami level caliber talent in the South Florida area, even if it's a school that you don't know of.
So I always, in situations like this, try to figure out what the formula is or what it should be. Meaning, Miami's in a location that is in the top, maybe the very best recruiting ground in the country.
Yeah, the top number 1.
Okay. Can that be played out, proven? I'm not challenging you. I'm just stating. Obviously, I'm in the place that I am.
Fort Lauderdale and Miami regionally, I think we're number 1 and 2 in terms of draft picks and NFL players currently between those 2 counties. And those are the neighboring counties right next door to, one of them houses the University of Miami and the other one's the next door county north where I live. So, yeah.
Okay. So the formula in regards to what percentage of those guys do you need to get to be perennial conference championship contenders and then into the playoff and to be where you want to be? Obviously you're not going to get all of them. LSU and Ohio State and all the rest of the schools are going to come down there and get some type of share, but right. Obviously you're going to need to do better and are starting to do better than you have done.
Right. It's really, the thing for me is it's not about the percentage overall, it's about the percentage at the top. Because Miami's always had a high percentage overall from, the Tri-County area going, West Palm, shout out to Kev, Broward and Dade. You're going to have a high percentage of players coming from that Tri-County area. It's about getting the cream of the crop. And that's where the issue comes. So I think that we need to do better and stronger in that pursuit. And I think by getting some of these guys that we've gotten recently, gee willikers. Okay.
I can hear that.
I know.
I usually don't hear anything.
They're trimming the hedges right here. Like they just started the lawn guys and everything. So, hey, it happens. But yeah, getting a higher percentage of the top guys, the guys that you need, especially when they play a position where the positional value and the scarcity of prospects is high or is low. So if you're talking about, again, offensive line, you lose the Dumerville kid, Elvis Dumerville's cousin, Marcus, to LSU. The Martinez kid who also went to St. Thomas, he goes to LSU. You lose Marcus Tate this year to Clemson. You lost Isaiah Walker to Florida, but he came to his senses and transferred since to Miami. You have those guys at offensive line, and there's few and far between. Again, I named all 4 of them in the last 2 years. You cannot go 0 for 4. You cannot miss on every single available blue chip talent at that position locally just because it's so scarce, especially when you got guys who can play tackle like Dumerville and Walker and Tate. That's really tough when you see that. Wide receivers, do you want to lose them? No. But then you lose Calvin Ridley. You lose Amari Cooper. You lose, like Jerry Jeudy. So it's not even like, okay, well, just a guy. No, I lose a transcendent guy. You know what I mean? And it's really just doing more to get a share of some of those guys. And I think it seems to be in this class and the last couple of classes, we're going in that direction. So it's really, locking down or locking in more guys at the top.
And that's what I was alluding to when I asked the question and talked about the formula, because it's the Wisconsins and Nebraskas, and I'm trying to think of what other schools in particular. It's really everyone that comes down and grabs the top 80 players in the state type range. But it's the programs that we all know that are competing for playoff spots every year that are coming down and grabbing the top 5 and top 10 guys.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. You cannot go 0 for 10, with your top guys. Or if you're talking about, in just, the Tri-County area, whatever you want to rank those top 10 players as. You cannot go 0 for 10. 3 or 4 for 10 is pretty good. You know what I mean? 5 or more, hey, we're cooking with grease, and that's where we are now. So it just, you can't let everybody else come and just get the gourmet ingredients. You know what I mean? You just can't get the best of the best and see them all go, and then you get good, but you still need guys to make plays. Even on, for example, Florida State, 2013-14. Dalvin Cook. Miami Central Senior High School, they were going to lose some games. They were going to lose games to Miami. But you had this one guy who was of this superior caliber, and he himself, because he's so much better, made the plays that they needed to make to win these games. So even though you have a Joseph Yearby who played with Dalvin Cook and everything, his ceiling was limited. And look, I said that Joe Yearby was a better running back coming out of high school than was Dalvin Cook. And I believe that. But I also said that Dalvin Cook was a better athlete. And if he was able to develop as a running back, then he would obviously surpass that. I didn't think that was going to happen in a game and a half and one fall practice. I did not think that was going to happen, because when he was at Miami Central, to be perfectly honest, it was, I'm going to hit a crease, and if I can, I'm going to fire the sideline, and I'm faster than you. And that's what his role in that offense was. But Dalvin Cook proved to be a transcendent player. That's one guy, So even though you could have a lot of good guys, they had a great player from this area, and that single-handedly, he beat Miami by himself twice, where we had the game won. And then Dalvin Cook just said, no, I'm going to Dalvin Cook. Boom. So that's one example of having one of those top guys locally, how that had a positive impact for this team. That's the kind of change that you can have when you have these guys. But now instead of wearing garnet and gold or whatever color, they're wearing orange and green and staying home in Coral Gables.
So there's the fan reaction that it's time to celebrate. Then there's also those fans that say, check, got it, good, awesome. Oh, we need ... Let's go back down the list. And Fresh 3542 seems to be one of those, which is perfectly fine. So he's immediately moving on to, we need offensive linemen, we need linebackers, and also pointing out that, of course, you brought in Brinson, the wide receiver, but this seems to be heavy defensive gets, and we need the offense.
Well, I mean, we got a lot of offense last year, in this current class, or the 2020 class. So, you got to balance it and say, okay, I'm not just going to go super heavy on offense again, because I got a lot of guys. We signed 4 wide receivers last year. Now, that you need more than just those 4, but this is going to be more of a defensive class. So, yes, we do need offensive linemen. We are still chasing guys and hopefully looking for guys. I agree with that. Linebackers, I can take 1 or 2, depending. But I mean, there's a lot of needs, of course, in this class. I still got to go down the numbers of needs. I still got to write that. I'm going to write that today. You're looking at what you need. So you do need those things. I'm not saying that you don't, but spots are limited, and then it's going to come to a place where if you want insert player here, then we're going to need to have the conversation of, okay, which one of these commitments are you going to say thanks, but I hope that you find a landing place elsewhere to create a space for this player. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those things, and it's the conversation that, Mark and I have repeatedly. Like, you can't just say, okay, I need this guy, I need this guy. You can, but then we're limited by the number of scholarships that we can sign. We're limited by, the rules of recruiting and things like that, like the actual, not the piece that I wrote, the recruiting rules, but the actual functional, structural NCAA rules. So yeah, you got to see who you want to keep. And, if you're looking to upgrade, then you're going to have to kick somebody out. You're going to have to, process them out or whatever it is from the recruiting class. So you have to pay attention to those things. There was a couple of people asked about Terrence Lewis, 5-star outside linebacker. He was at Miami Northwestern, left. He went to Chaminade for a minute, did not fit with their program culture, and now he's back at Northwestern. It's a kid who's committed to Tennessee, is friends with and knows all the guys that I've talked about today who've committed. So obviously all the Miami Northwestern guys who are committed. He plays at Miami Northwestern, so he knows them from home. Obviously James Williams and a couple other guys also from the Opelika area knows them as well. So I have heard that, and it seems to be that one Mr. Lewis has maybe some behavioral issues. Maybe he is not the kind of presence in the locker room that you would like to have. It went so far as Chaminade posted a subtweet basically talking about, people want to come in and think that they're bigger than the program, but the program is bigger than anybody. So we're going to go in our direction, and we wish, that player or whomever who thinks that they're better than the program the best. And that was about Terrence Lewis. That was directly about Terrence Lewis because they used his Twitter handle nickname is. They put that in there and said, oh yeah, but basically nah, we're good. We're good over here. Do your thing wherever else. I've heard rumors about why he initially left Miami Northwestern that are unsettling to me as well. But he's back there, so maybe those things have been worked out. I say all of that to say that Terrence Lewis is very talented. Terrence Lewis is a guy who can play at Miami, USC, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, anywhere. But for the reasons of maybe personality and cultural fit, me myself personally would not go after him. And I'm always a guy who has said in whatever industry, I would rather have the talent, even if the talent is maybe a little bit prickly personally, and try to work it out. When I was a choir director, I lived by that. I said, I'm going to take more talented kids in my program and in the elevated advanced levels, knowing that they have this ego, knowing that they, maybe are not 100% of a culture fit, but their talent is such that I will knowingly go into this relationship knowing that, and then say, I can fix these other things because they're supremely talented. So it's not that I'm overlooking it, but I'm willing to work with these other things because of the talent. I've always thought that. But with Terrence Lewis, the juice is not worth the squeeze for me. You know what I mean? It's not worth it, in my estimation, to accept the talent and then try to work with the personality or the cultural things. For me and what I've heard, and that's it, I'm not going to say anything else. But to me, that's not a fit. I get that other people might disagree and say, hey, Cam, you did it with your choir kids, or you said it with other recruits and things like that. So why not Terrence Lewis? We should do the same thing. It should be the same for everybody. Hey, and if you want to call me out on that, I get it. I'm not going to fight you on it. But sometimes there's exceptions to the rule. And to me, that's Terrence Lewis. And I think that he will do well at Tennessee or somewhere else.
What you just addressed there is so prominent and so prevalent of the talk during NFL draft time. Just sit and watch an NFL draft for the entire weekend, and how much talk is about the character or what needs to be the football character of the young man.
Right.
Because obviously they've played for 3 or 4 years in college, typically at high profile programs. So the spotlight and the information involving those kind of situations has multiplied a zillion times because just of time being an element of them continuing to show character flaws for the next 3 or 4 years. Plus, on top of that, obviously, the high profile nature of where they're playing makes those type of incidents and those type of examples prevalent during NFL draft talk. But obviously, they occur at the lower levels, junior high and high school, for that to be a concern in the college football recruiting process. We just don't hear too many of those as we do 3 or 4 years later going into the NFL, and the NFL being hypersensitive about those kind of character flaws, and also separating what they need of football character versus some things that they can handle not being the best of character that you or I would want to live with or live next to.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is, coaches cannot talk about recruits by name in college. You know what I mean? So it's not the same, whereas in the NFL, you're talking about, okay, like, why would you give me your thoughts on Vontaze Burfict? It's like, well, where you're going to talk about that. But
great example.
Hey, man, and in college, but you're not going to get that because you cannot talk about recruits by name. And it's a lose-lose situation for you to talk shit about a player. You know what I mean? Because if you choose not to recruit a player, then you choose not to recruit a player, and you have another guy for that spot and say, hey, we like the guys that we got. We think that we got guys that are talented who can play here. Maybe they might take a year or two to develop. I think that we have a great cultural fit. You can say all of those things, which are tacitly saying, okay, anybody that it's kind of going, okay, if we didn't take you, then we're saying that maybe you didn't fit on this area, region, or whatever. But that player probably landed somewhere else. And they're saying, hey, we got some talented guys. They're saying the same things. So it would just be really shitty for you to say, yeah, Mark's team got this guy who sucks. He punched his teacher in the face. He slashed his girlfriend's tires or whatever. So we didn't want him here, but Mark's team has him. So, I mean, that's just sour grapes. And then it's going to come off as such. So even if you're in a recruiting battle for that guy, then it's just like, oh, okay, so now I can't trust this coach because if I don't go there, then he's instead of being, actually looking out for me and trying to develop me as a person, he's just going to talk about me in a negative kind of way. So, I mean, there are those kind of exterior concerns to the conversation as well.
Folks, you see the value here. Please like the video. Please subscribe to our channel, even if it's only for this show. But if you love college football, I think it's for other reasons as well. But subscribe to the channel. Therefore, you hit the bell for the notifications and know when we're going live. And number 3, the super chat is available, and understand, again, the value that's here. Eddie the Cane brings up a good point here in regards to when the wins aren't yet the proof of concept, as you often like to say, Cam. The proof of concept, and hopefully Cam's able to come back here. Then obviously there's a situation in which the student athlete knows what's going on at the university and knows what's going on in regards to who is coming into the program and where is this program headed. So, for example, at North Carolina, Mack Brown is hired. Now, the day he's hired, there's a level of credibility that's been lifted to because of just simply the hiring. He didn't do anything. He didn't make any good moves. He didn't do anything. Just people know who Mack Brown is. So then on top of that, you have, if he's really as good as he's supposed to be, then he starts to build the program and make the moves that have an impact. So I think Eddie the Cane's possibly talking about 2 things there: the actual name recognition of some of the people that he listed being like a wow factor, and then on top of that, those people actually making an impact that brings those student athletes into the program. If you see the comment there from Eddie the Cane.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of impact. You can even talk about the support staff, DeMarcus Van Dyke, former first-round draft pick, who went to Miami. Cooney, the David Cooney, former high school coach, who's on staff now. You got Telly Lockett with an analyst role here at Miami. There's a lot of guys who are a part of that. So yeah, they're all doing a great job. Just developing players, and obviously those relationships and everything that are paying off in terms of getting commitments, which is pretty awesome.
J Love T, thank you so much for the super chat contribution here. Come on, Cam. Aren't you part of the Banda Elite Gang? Shout out to Banda for out 5 years grabbing his #1 target. Tighten up, rump.
Yeah, man. Look, Banda just keeps doing the job. guys who play safety get better. We're going to finally start seeing some of those guys get to the NFL. Well, I mean, hey, we had Adrian Colbert who came down here. He played safety and corner as a transfer, and that worked for him. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job of getting the guys that he's after. And yes, Mike Rump at cornerback, we've talked about it. There's always a late cycle get, but why do we got to wait till the late cycle and, pick up somebody else's fumble? Why are we not getting the guys at the top of the class that we want? So if you're talking about, a Jason Marshall at corner, if you're talking about any of these other guys, there's going to come a time where we got to start getting those dudes, because you're seeing that we're getting those guys at every single other position. There was a question a couple questions ago.
Okay.
It wasn't Brandon Washington. He was in that Miami Northwestern 2009 class. That was, yeah. All those dudes. No, not that one. Yeah, we need better offensive line. We know that. That one. Yeah. Why does Rivals have James Williams as a 4-star, not a 5-star? That's actually one that had a bunch of conversations about the other day on Wednesday, because it was told to me that Rivals dropped James Williams from 5-star to 4-star on Wednesday. And I went with that and I commented about that. I did not check into that. And I do know and have spoken to a bunch of those guys. Woody Womack, Rob Cassidy, who lives down here as a Southeastern analyst for Rivals. Mike Farrell, I've interacted with before, a couple of their other national guys. Like, Rivals has been around for a long time. So, we know those guys. And yeah, specifically Rob Cassidy and I, because I have, talked with him a bunch and everything, and we have a connection of whatever level. We spoke about it and everything, but that change was made in February after a Rivals camp, dropping James Williams from a 5-star to a 4-star, because some of the national guys basically thought that the conversation from earlier that he's going to outgrow safety, he's going to go to outside linebacker and not be very physical at outside linebacker because of his preference to play in space, which when you're playing safety, and if you look at Davies' film, his junior highlights from when he played at Western High School, he's playing a lot of single high safety, center field, free safety. Bro, yeah, that's absolutely playing in space. You know what I mean? But then saying that and then translating that to outside linebacker of wanting to play in space and not be around people, I think was kind of a faulty narrative or faulty logic. But that was the logical foundation that was told to me. That was the reason to drop him to a 4-star. Now, I believe that he's going to end up a 5-star on every recruiting service, ESPN, Scout. Well, Scout doesn't exist anymore. Rivals and 247. I believe that he will. James Williams will get up there. But yeah, based on the projection of moving to outside linebacker and not being physical at outside linebacker because of his preference to play in space, which as a single high free safety is what you do every snap anyway with your heels at 14 or 15, and single high means one dude in the middle of the field playing center field, like you're playing baseball. Like I'm here by myself covering this range. So that was the thing basically with Rivals and dropping it. I don't agree with it. I spoke to a couple people from Rivals the other day, and there are some who don't agree with it. But also at the end of the day, when the head rankings guy and your boss says, yeah, but I agree with it, so we're dropping him, that's what happens. You know what I mean? But again, I think that this is just a step along the path. I don't think that he's going to end up being a 4-star. I think that, no, I mean, you can say what you want about any recruiting service, but leaving James Williams as a 4-star at the end of the cycle just to prove a point would actually be deleterious to their own reputation. When everybody else sees, look, he's gigantic, he's fast, he covers all this ground. He is still a physical enforcer in the middle of the field, even though it's not the same as being a Michael Barrow and Tamarick Vanover, a crossing route in the middle of the field. He's not that kind of enforcer, but still at safety, he uses his physicality to a requisite level or above. But then just to prove a point of being contrarian, then we're going to leave him as a lower ranked guy. You're going to lose credibility that I don't think that you have the cachet to lose. Even with being a website as tenured and recognizable as Rivals, you cannot just go and be contrarian overall just to do it. So that's the story that I believe happened with James Williams being dropped to a 4-star at Rivals. But again, I do not believe that he will end this cycle ranked as a 4-star there or anywhere.
So for him to be dropped down to a 4-star, according to Rivals, would have to be pretty significant in regards to the rankings themselves, because as we talk about from time to time here, the range of 5 stars, according to most of these services each year, is about 30 to 35 players. I see him in the bottom portion of the top 10. So he's like a number 8, 9 player in the country, both according to 247 Sports and the composite. So Rivals must have him dropped him to 40 or 50.
Yeah. I think it was somewhere in that range.
Okay. Terry, number 27, jumps on here with an interesting point. It's a pretty standard point, but at the same time, so Cam, I'll address this first, and then you can do the deep dive into the Miami situation in regards to coaching. Obviously, the coaching talent, we can have an argument in regards to the percentage of how much is coaching, how much is talent. I can only think of one program that consistently recruited at a high level. Some people will think USC, but if you look at USC, even though the program's been largely disappointing since Pete Carroll left, they did win a Rose Bowl. They did have a Pac-12 championship season. They did have some really good teams here in the last 10 years, and they recruited a little uneven, but they had some top 5 classes, and then they would drop down to 20, and they had a really bad class 2 years ago at number 52, I believe. But Texas is the school that I'm thinking of that under Charlie Strong and early under Tom Herman continues to bring in number 5 classes, number 8 classes, number 3 classes, and continue to lose 5 and 6 and 7 football games. Well, under Charlie Strong, consistently under 500, a little bit better under Tom Herman, but still an 8-5 season this past year. So I can't think of another example in which a program is bringing in elite talent that Miami is doing over the last couple months. Now, it obviously has to prove out over a couple years, and not been able to coach them up to the degree that they're contending for conference championships, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where obviously you need to do, coaching and development matters, but it is part of the process. Like, you have to recruit the players, but you want to have athletic, high ceiling guys. You want to have, the guys who fit the prototypes on size and speed and strength and skill, and then coach them up to be bigger, faster, stronger, and more skillful. Duh. Miami's done that on defense since Manny Diaz got here, 100% without controversy. Maybe, you can argue that some of the guys who you might have thought had higher ceilings actually just hit their ceiling and performed at that level for a while. And you thought, okay, they're going to get better, but no, this is as good as they're going to get. But on defense, it's been there. On offense, it's not. And that's just a point of fact. So yeah, I think that's where Manny Diaz went to address issues this past year. You hire a Rhett Lashley. He brings in Garen Justice as an offensive line coach. You have a new wide receivers coach. Who is the wide receivers coach now? Oh my God, I know it's not Taylor Stubblefield.
I'll get in on it here.
Holy shnikes.
I'll know the name as soon as I see
I forget. I know you have Eric Hickson at running back. Who's coaching wide receiver? What in the goodness? I mean, Lashley's coaching quarterback. A blank. I cannot remember.
Rob Likens
from Arizona State. That's right. Who's had 2 first-round draft picks the last couple of years. Co-offensive coordinator. That's your wide receivers coach. I'm sorry that I forgot. I know you guys are sitting there Likens screaming it. Hey, sometimes my mind goes blank too. But you bring in all these other guys, and they have a track record of success elsewhere. In coaching their positions, in developing guys, in having the proper usage of the players also, because if you have a guy who and you're asking him to do things that are outside of his skill set, that's not going to be beneficial. So I don't think that Miami's coaching sucks. I think that it has needed improvement in some certain specific areas. I think that we've seen moves made towards that end. Now we need to see if those moves pay dividends, but based upon the track records of these coaches, I would say at least give them the benefit of the doubt, if not expect that things should be appropriately moved forward in those areas. So, yeah, we'll see. But I think that Manny Diaz, unlike Mark Richt and unlike Al Golden, knew where his staff had areas of deficiency and made the swift move after year one to make changes to address those, because he cannot have another year this year like last year. If he does, he'll be fired, and he knows that. That's why he made swift and big moves towards taking a step in the direction that he thinks that this program and this coaching staff need to be.
Do you think there would be a different evaluation, though, if Manny Diaz, let's say, continues to recruit out of his mind, brings in a top 5 to 10 recruiting class, then they go 6-6 again, especially considering the pandemic and the versus bringing in a 35th ranked class and going 6-6?
Absolutely, 100%. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's yes.
And on the recruiting front, people that listen to me on a regular basis know that I admire and am fascinated with situations like Kansas State in Bill Snyder's heyday, when he's bringing in 50th and 60th and 70th rated recruiting classes and finishing in the top 10 in the nation, or what Wisconsin's done forever and bringing in 35th rated recruiting classes and finishing with top 10 teams in the nation. Mark D'Antonio, his first half of his stint at Michigan State, just developing players out of his mind. Again, recruiting rankings are not going to blow you away. He's winning Rose Bowls and Cotton Bowls. And there's just a few programs out there that can do that and have done it. And Wisconsin's the gold standard in terms of doing it for a long period of time. But that's really not the way to do it. I have more admiration for those examples, just like I do the military academies with all the restrictions they have, competing at the level that they do. I think is just fascinating to me.
But I will
that's
say,
not the way to do it. You want to do it the Georgia, Alabama, LSU way.
Exactly. But in terms of especially like Kansas State, Bill Snyder was bringing in half of his recruiting classes were going to be JUCOs. Yeah. Those are going to be older guys. Yeah. They're going to be, 4th and 5th year dudes. Even if you're looking at Wisconsin, the foundation of everything is offensive line. So you have every once in a blue moon, and Aaron Gibson, I think it was, who was a first-round draft pick from the Lions, who plays as a redshirt freshman. Outside of that, you're probably not going to get guys who are younger than 20 or 21 as 3rd or 4th year dudes who are playing on that offensive line. So now you're having it at a high level for a while. And obviously, like we've seen, and unfortunately, we've been on the business end of this for a while, but their offensive line is a thing that it'll take over a game, and it's able to mitigate whatever issues there are in the gap of talent, because they're just going to lean on you. You know what I mean? And things like that. But in all of those situations, all those teams that you're talking about, even with Michigan State, they weren't playing freshmen and sophomores, really. You're talking about redshirt sophomores and up. So you're talking about guys who are older and more physically developed, and you're going to need to take that time. But at Miami, number one, you don't have that time because you got to win, especially after what's been going on. And, for better or for worse, guys want to play, when they come here. They don't want to sit. Look, I've seen y'all lose. So, look, it's not like you got an All-American in front of me. Now, if you're a tight end, sure, you got to sit behind Brevin Jordan. I get it. If you're a defensive end, sure, you're going to be behind Quincy Roche and Gregory Rousseau. And if you're a safety, okay, you're going to be behind, a Bubba Bolden and Gervin Hall and Amari Carter. Sure, but at most positions, I'm trying to come in and play. Running back, this year, Jalen Knighton and Don Chaney Jr., they're coming in to play. Lorenzo Lingard, former 5-star, gone. He's at Florida. Robert Burns is made out of glass. You know what I mean? He had 9 carries his senior year in high school and 1 kickoff return. He's had 14 carries, I want to say, in his college career. He's a 4th-year junior. I'm going to sit behind that. This dude can't, whatever, blah, blah, blah. At least if I'm thinking that, look, this is what I'm looking at. So I'm trying to come in and I'm trying to play. Not right now, but right now. And that's the thing that you're not going to have these guys many places at Kansas State and the Wisconsins and the places like that. Now, yes, okay, fine. You've got a Jonathan Taylor, who's uncommonly talented, to go to Wisconsin. Sure, he's going to play there and anywhere. But that was the exception, not the rule, to the fact of having a young player come into a starting role at that kind of a school.
There you go. Tabardine, his comments about Manny Diaz. This guy is the biggest Manny Diaz fan in the world and posts probably, I'm guessing, 15 to 25 comments in every live chat about Manny Diaz being the best coach in college football. And people find it amusing, including myself.
Yeah, that's a lot. I think that maybe down the road in a while, if things go in a way that we've seen in other places, like a Dabo at Clemson, like a Saban at Alabama, if you have that for a protracted run, I think maybe that eventually you might be able to have that conversation. But at this point today, for me, and I think for Mark as well, I think that's a little premature.
Yeah, I'm the guy that so when I rated coaches this year in the SEC, and I may get obliterated here, I ranked Dan Mullen over Kirby Smart by 1 spot. Even though Smart had the wins and the championships in his column, I made an argument. But typically, you always start with record, unless they're coaching at Vanderbilt, and then you take a lot of consideration into the record, or Northwestern or somewhere like that. But he's 6-7 right now. You can be happy with him. He's doing it. He's tearing it up, and that was just a first year, so he's fine. We'll evaluate later. It's difficult to evaluate right now, but he's basically accomplishing in the second category that you need to accomplish. Obviously, wins and losses is the bottom line, but if you don't have that and you're looking to another category to see if the job's eventually going to be accomplished, it's recruiting, and they are getting the job done.
Fact.
During all this conversation about all the talent in South Florida, and you addressed this to a certain extent from a different angle a few weeks ago, but you were talking about transcendent players. And when we think transcendent players, we think first and foremost quarterbacks, and you're bringing in this kind of talent, and we think Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, those kind of guys. Are any of those guys in South Florida?
Not since Geno. Well, I mean, yeah, Geno Smith, yeah, Bridgewater. I mean, Lamar Jackson from Boynton Beach.
What was the deal on Lamar Jackson when he came out?
Lamar Jackson, so number one, as you've seen this from all the media that they've done, his mother was intractable about the fact that he's a quarterback. Don't talk to me about no position change. Don't talk about my running back, wide receiver skill. No, my boy is a quarterback. And you get that. You've seen that in any kind of media, of any fictional story or any pretty much other story of, guys, wanting to be quarterbacks and things like that. You had the dad and everything, John Elway, with his dad, saying, no, I'm not even going to have him play for your team. He's a quarterback, but he's not, whatever, all those kind of things. So that was the number one. He was the backup plan for Miami because Miami had Dwayne Lawson committed in that class from Tampa, who ended up going to Virginia Tech. And that was the year after we had signed Brad Kaya. So this is Brad Kaya's freshman year of college. So Dwayne Lawson, who was like a high jump and triple jump champion in his classification, as well as being a very good football player, huge guy, like 6'6", 215 pounds with a huge arm, decided, look, I'm not going to go to Miami because they got this freshman. He's going to play. And so in the group of backup options was Lamar Jackson, who Pompano Beach is like right up the street from me. And then he lived there, and then he moved up and he went to Boynton Beach, which is up in West Palm, or Palm Beach County. And so Miami kicked the tires on him and everything, and a bunch of other teams did too. But Bobby Petrino had been in there from day one and was like, no, you're going to come to Louisville, you're going to be a quarterback. That's it. And so even when Miami reached out late to try to talk about it and everything, he was pretty much sold on Louisville and everything. Lamar Jackson, if you look back at the highlights and everything, he put on shows in high school. He did a lot of things that you're seeing. He didn't have the greatest talent around him at Boynton. So even some of the throws, even if you grade, it's kind of that pro football focus thing where you grade the throw appropriately, but it's dropped or it's, whatever, but, things like that. So there was a little bit of that. But he was a known guy. He just wasn't. Hello?
There you are. You just cut out there for a second. Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm going to get to some comments and questions while Cam's working things out. And we've hit the top of the hour regardless. We also wanted to address the Notre Dame ACC situation. So the ACC announced the other day that it will release a schedule by next Wednesday, and a number of schedules are being bantied about. There he is. We'll bring you back in, and I'll shut up about Notre Dame.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my microphone today.
There you go.
Yeah. But anyway, Lamar Jackson was a known guy, even in the local area, but he wasn't that guy. He wasn't Lamar Jackson at that point. And he wasn't even when he got to Louisville. And then they started losing games. And then they were like, okay, we're going to tweak the offense a little bit. We're going to put the young kid out there and see what he can do. And then we saw what he could do. So, yeah, I mean, he was a guy that Miami did go after, even though, again, it was as a fallback when their number one committed QB decided to go elsewhere in that class. But yeah, basically, Bobby Petrino got in there early, was all in on him being a quarterback, had a good relationship with the mother and the family. Because again, like I said, she was 100% on the fact that, my baby's playing quarterback and don't talk to me about nothing else. And even ran off a couple of other teams that tried to come in and say, oh, well, maybe we thought about, seeing what, never mind, hang up the phone. Don't talk to me about that, coach. I don't want to know, period. So, yeah, that's kind of the story on him.
Okay, a lot of comments and questions and so forth in the live chat. The one comment that keeps being brought up, and I don't know how much Cam's going to be able to address this because we did mention this off camera, is that there's an anticipated commit for the weekend. Do you feel it responsible to make any kind of speculation on who that could be? I
mean, there's a lot of guys who are on the list. If you're talking about, it could be one of the Palmetto kids. Maybe it could be somebody off the board or off the center of the focus, if you will, because, a lot of these guys who've committed recently have been South Florida kids and everything. So, it could be one of those. I do not know. I'm telling you right now. So I'm not going to necessarily throw a name out there. But, yeah, it was supposed to apparently have happened on Friday. Wait, yesterday was Friday, right?
Yep.
So was it Friday? Thursday. I want to say it was supposed to happen on Thursday. Yeah, because I got off early. Yeah. So it was supposed to happen on Thursday, but then didn't and got pushed back to the weekend, whatever it is. So like I said, I do not know, but we will see. And, hopefully it will, just continue the momentum that Miami has seen on the recruiting trail. There was another question on who I would take between Keith Brown and Brashard Smith. My number one would be Brashard Smith. My number two of those two would be Keith Brown. Just because I think that Smith is a little bit more dynamic in space. I think that Keith Brown could play here, but that would then be a conversation if he were to be in this class of who are you going to drop or not take. And for me, I would take Brashard Smith instead of Keith Brown. Oh, yeah. Basically, and this is why I need to do this numbers and needs thing. We're at about 5 spots left in this class. And we have a lot of guys who are shutting down their recruitments. You've seen the Northwestern kids, are talking about that. You saw Thad Franklin and Andres Borgala's teammates at Hollywood Chaminade Madonna both shut down their recruitments recently this past week. And that's ended some uncertainty because, North Carolina was trying to flip Borgala's and a couple other teams were trying to flip Franklin. They said, nah, and Manny Diaz is, getting to that point where you can say, hey, nah, like either you're in or you're out. And if you're looking around, that means you're out. And that means we're going to look around too. So you can do that. That's your right in Providence, but actions have consequences. So I need to know. So yeah, with so few spots left, it's tough, but you're going to make numbers work too. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, it didn't matter if and when James Williams wanted to commit to Miami, we would have a spot for him. I believe that, period. Jason Marshall, Leonard Taylor, same. We're going to have a spot for those guys. If off the top of my head, if I'm looking at the last 5 spots, number 1, I need a quarterback. Number 2, I need a blue chip offensive lineman. Number 3, I need Jason Marshall. Number 4, I need Leonard Taylor. Number 5, I need the best available, whether that's Brashard Smith, whether that's that's best available would be my number 5. So, spots are tight. So you really got to figure out what you're doing. And again, the other thing that will open up spots is if you don't take somebody who's currently committed. If you shuttle them off, you process them out, you drop them, tell them to seek shelter elsewhere, whatever you want to call it, that's the only thing that would give more spots in this class. So, and that's a dangerous game to play, and everybody does it. You know, you don't want to be like Louisville where you drop Matt Colburn the day before National Signing Day, and he was going to be an early commitment or early enrollee and had been committed for 2 years. Well, yeah, it was that Monday before National Signing Day on Wednesday, few years ago. That's when Louisville dropped Matt Colburn. You don't want to do that. You know what I mean? But, you know, yeah, I would say open right now, there's 5 spots. If you wanted to get more, then you could look at the recruiting board and the list of commitments. There might be a couple of guys, if I'm talking quietly, that could see us processing for an upgrade, but maybe not.
Don't know how much time you've got, Cam, but I think you wanted to address the ACC Notre Dame situation.
Yeah, no, definitely do.
So let me set you up here for anybody that doesn't know that it was first reported on ESPN and then substantiated by others that the
it was first reported by Brett McMurphy of Stadium.
Okay, my bad. That's where I saw it first. I shouldn't make that statement.
But in that ESPN report, it did cite McMurphy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't make that statement.
Right, no, it's fine.
Because that's where I saw it, but that's not correct. Okay, and I know better than that. Yes, that the ACC is going to release a schedule for 2020 by next Wednesday. Within the proposals that are being considered is not just playing Notre Dame, as is already scheduled, 6 teams versus Notre Dame, but expanding that to a full schedule and making Notre Dame eligible for the conference championship.
In this year.
Yes.
And it's an interesting conversation because from the report, the ACC is considering a 10-game schedule plus 1 non-conference game. And that would be to sustain the ACC, SEC traditional rivals, your Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State, Clemson, South Carolina, and what's the other
Louisville,
one?
Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky, exactly. So those 4 games that are traditionally played, trying to preserve that so you have that 1 non-conference, things like that. Notre Dame has 6 ACC opponents on the schedule, and the only way to make that work would be for them to play as an ACC team, and then they have like 3 non-conference games, but then, you know, obviously flipping that up and seeing, you know, things like that. So to make the math work then, and to have Notre Dame as part of this equation, then you make them a conference team for this year, make them then eligible for the ACC championship game for this year. And again, this is where John Swofford or whomever at the ACC needs to flex muscle. No, you're not going to. No. And I know, and like, so the ACC has more scheduling partnerships than other conferences, just because you've made this conference now is a conglomeration of teams from other conferences, really. Think about, you know, Miami, Virginia Tech being in the Big East, Boston College as well, you know, things like that. And you're coming over, so, you know, you have these other considerations, and then you want to be connected to Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, the base of Notre Dame's schedule is going to be ACC teams, even though they're an independent. So you have usually 5, this year 6 times that you cross over into Notre Dame's national schedule, their independent schedule, things like that. Then you got to consider the ACC, SEC traditional matchups and things like that. So it's more than just the Big Ten saying, look, we're going conference only. That's it. Boom, done. Because of all these considerations, I still do not agree with this. Notre Dame has to choose. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Even if it's just for 1 season. No, absolutely not. So this is a time where I think that you need to push them to join the conferences as a full member, as they are in many sports, basketball, baseball, other, Olympic sports, or buy. You know what I mean? And I know Notre Dame is a national brand. I know that they have their own, but they're insular. They're being concerned about themselves. They're being selfish. And I mean that at the root of the word. Look, if you take a day off from work, you're being selfish. Well, no, I just needed a day off. I was tired. Oh, yeah, that's fine. You're not worried about the work. You're worried about yourself. That's what selfish means. And I know it's been colloquialized to be negative. They're being selfish, but they're being selfish, I think, in the root of the word and also in the colloquialized negative way, because, you know, they're worried about their bottom line because they're not sharing their NBC football contract money. You know what I mean? They're not sharing if they were to get the Orange Bowl slot for the ACC. They're not sharing that money. You know, they're not kicking back in or, you know, taking a share and putting that in the pot and everything. They're keeping that money for themselves. So they're being singularly focused. So as the ACC, you got to decide, are you facilitating their individual program status and greed, or are you running the Atlantic Coast Conference? And if you're running the Atlantic Coast Conference, then they need to come over here, not the other way around. And I get that, you know, you got to play the chess. You know, you have to think 3 moves ahead. You have to do all that political stuff and think about all the moves that could, or the fallout that could happen and da-da-da-da. But like, look, they need us more than we need them right now. And that's just a point of fact. Because if the ACC were to go to conference only with one non-conference game, that means that Notre Dame then has to choose one ACC team to play. The end. And we're going to do our thing. You know, so I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. You know, it's all of a win for Notre Dame. You know, it's a low cost, high reward situation for them, and it's all loss for the ACC. Like, what are we gaining from that? Not much, to be perfectly honest. So, you know, again, and I've been staunchly against this. I know that I spoke about this last week. I know Mark is, or at least last week, was staunchly against it. I want to speak for him now. But yeah, it is a thing that has been considered in addition to the pods that we spoke about before, in addition to the home and home or the whatever other ACC schedule. But I mean, when you see, I mean, obviously Notre Dame, the brand is strong. It is a national university par excellence. It is a great academic institution. It is an iconic program in the world of college football. And I mean, yeah, they do have muscles to flex, but I mean, they need us to allow them to do what it is that they want to do. So they're not coming in and just, you know, kicking the door down and taking what they want. They're asking for permission. And for me, we're only giving that permission only if you're coming in as a full-time member starting this year and continuing forward. But, you know, the 15 university presidents and chancellors will have to vote on that proposal, vote on any schedule proposal, including the one that we're talking about today with admitting Notre Dame as a conference team for this year. You know, and those are politicized positions, and there are political machinations to the voting process and their stances on these things. So we'll see what happens. But I am not a fan of the idea of admitting Notre Dame as a football member for the 2020 season, regardless. Call me a hater, call me whatever. Also, Brian Kelly's an aberrant, atrocious human being. Rest in peace to Declan Sullivan, who was sent up in a cherry picker in the name of practice video. And rest in peace, Lizzie Seberg, who was sexually assaulted by Notre Dame football players and driven to commit suicide. And those pieces are up on the internet forever that you can read about what happened to Declan Sullivan and to Lizzie Seberg. This is why, part of the reason why I hate Notre Dame. I'm never going to forget that. And if you see me on Twitter, that is the thing that I'm going to say. Brian Kelly sent Declan Sullivan to his certain death in a cherry picker in 75-mile-an-hour winds in the name of practice video. That is verifiably true. I'm not making any slanderous statement. You can look that up. I do not like Notre Dame. I do not want to let them in. And if I'm bringing in my own personal feelings to that by informing you, if you probably forgot, because it was years ago, excuse me, about Declan Sullivan and or Lizzie Seberg, then, hey, that's what I was supposed to do. I urge you to go look it up, but that's part of the consideration for me, and I'm not sorry about it.
Okay. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm familiar with the first instance involving the practice video, and I know that that was called into question by a lot of people, but obviously not a whole lot was done officially. Nothing really was the end result. And then the second one I don't have any knowledge of. my comments concerning the
fine.
Notre Dame ACC relationship, no, I appreciate that. Certainly, what I want on this channel more than anything, even beyond the football, is just the truth to be known, or at least the discussion out there for people to be able to investigate whatever that situation is, whether we're talking about something as meaningless in life as a bad call in a football game, or we're talking about something that is at the very core of life and life itself, and something that nefarious. So my original reaction to Notre Dame joining the ACC in all the other sports, but not in football, was, what is this conference doing? What message is being sent? This is a Bush League move to just grab money. If you're the ACC and if you're Notre Dame, we need a home for all our other sports, but we want to stay independent. So it was a win-win situation, but just not a good look for a conference that I would think any Power 5 conference wants to say we are credible. And you're not credible when you allow yourself to be put in that type of agreement, especially concerning the most important of sports in terms of prestige and monetarily. Then came the opportunity in this pandemic situation, in which I shot a video making my thoughts known, and Cam and I addressed the situation last week, in which I stated, as soon as I heard that the Big Ten had made the decision that it had, and the Pac-12 concerning non-conference games, and there was thought that maybe the ACC would be next, that this was the golden opportunity to grab Notre Dame by the throat and say, if you want to play football in 2020, you're going to do it our way, and going forward, that you could make a right and you improve your conference in so many different areas by adding the brand and the prominence of Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Now we have this current report that Cam just addressed, in which we're taking it to another level of this uneven relationship, in which we may allow this team to compete for a championship one time and then go back to status quo. How ridiculous and ludicrous is that?
And again, it's the one time that it would benefit them. You know what I mean? It's not even just like one time. I just picked a year, 1995. You know what I mean? It was like, no, like this one time that they need it because of this situation. We're going to bend over backwards to facilitate this opportunity for them. For why? For why? Why? What are we getting out of this? Nothing. You already have 6 teams that we're going to play them. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, we get 4 more games. Fine. On NBC, where you're not going to get the money from it? Cool. What if they do actually make the Orange Bowl again? You're not going to see any of that money because they get to keep all of that. Like, what are we doing? Honestly and truly. Like what? Like what? Why? What? It doesn't make any damn sense. And Marcus Aurelius, you know what? I'm not even gonna go there. Oh, the thunderstorm fan, can you tell the sun showers are gonna beat Duke or Georgia Tech? Blah, 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 blah. That's fine. You're probably an FIU fan or a Florida fan. That's fine. And you can say what you want to say because we lost those games last year. That's perfectly fine. But line it up. Whatever team you're a fan of, put them on the schedule. Because I'm not scared of any team. I respect all teams. I'm scared of none. Even next year, 2021 opener against Alabama, I respect the hell out of them. I'm not scared of them. I'm going to go in and say right now, yeah, they're probably going to be the favorite to win that game. But I respect all opponents. I don't fear anybody. And I'm not going to run away from the past because, hey, the past happened. We lost those games. But if I were to go further and say, well, we have 5 championships, and no, you want to live in the past, you want to live in the past, you want to live in the past, no, no, no. All right. But if I go in the recent past, I go to the Notre Dame game in 2017. Oh, you want to live in the past? What are you talking about last year? I mean, it's selective and everything. But I will say, I cannot, and I personally will not, run away from the fact that we lost those games last year. It infuriated me. It infuriated me greatly. It sucked. It was not great. But this year, and moving forward, whatever team you're a fan of, put them on the schedule. Let's line it up. And then we'll see.
Yeah, I always love the arguments about elite status, or at what point we start to count championships and so forth and so on. You can always play that game unless you won it last year in your LSU. Otherwise, at what point does it become insignificant that a program won a national championship? I didn't even read that statement before I posted it. I saw Marcus's name, and he's a good viewer and comments all the time.
No, it's all fine.
And the last point I'll make about the Notre Dame ACC situation is that, unfortunately, a lot of people's perception about situations like this are all about the results. So if Notre Dame is allowed to play for a championship, but Clemson wins the championship, let's say, as expected, no harm, no foul, Notre Dame goes 7-3, 8-2, and they don't win the ACC, then nobody's going to care, and so forth and so on. But it's the principle of it, because Notre Dame is allowed to compete for the championship. And so I, for one, not being in any way, shape, or form a Notre Dame fan, will be, in a sense, rooting for Notre Dame to win the ACC just to see it.
For the comedy of it. I get it.
Yes.
You know, it just...
Even though it doesn't matter, even if they go 0-10, it's the principle of it.
It's the principle. It's the process.
Yes.
You know, and like, I know people are like, oh my God, but, and I said it at the time, I'm a process-based person. I know that Al Golden bastardized it because he didn't change the process based upon the results, because they go hand in hand. But the process has to be proper. You know what I mean? To bear out the results. And if the results aren't the results you want, then your process is flawed. I believe foundationally, at any way that you have Notre Dame as an ACC member this year, your process is flawed. No. Regardless of the result. Whether again, like Mark is saying, if they go 9-2, if they go 8-3, you know, in their 11 games, whatever it happens to be. No.
11, yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
I was going 10, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 10 in the ACC and then with the 11. Yeah. That's fine. But it's not the result there. It's the process of letting them into this conference to be an ACC full member team for this year, with which I have an issue.
Yeah, I have a difficult time arguing uphill in a lot of debates, because I'm more of the principled person who says, and people will say, well, that didn't happen. But the decisions that were made could have allowed this to happen. Well, it didn't happen, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
But that's also, you know, kind of the thing where, you know, you and I and other people will speak up front, you know, commentary analysis, and say, hey, you know, based upon this process, based upon where we are now, these are my feelings, these are my thoughts with this whole entire situation. And then obviously you're going to revisit them, you know, when things happen. But like, no, the process matters, you know. And again, I think that we've both made it clear that we have dissident ideas in terms of the process relative to admitting Notre Dame as a full member team for the ACC for this year.
So we've taken up way too much of Cam's time, but I will ask Cam that you answer one other question, only because Anthony Marzano has asked this like 50 times and says, please, 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 Mark. And I believe, because I've lost track of the question because it's so far back in the live chat, but I believe it has to do with who gets left off of the roster or the recruiting process if the Palmetto 5 is completely taken 1 through 5.
It depends on where you are in the cycle, I think. The easy name is Malik Curtis from Bishop Verot, just because he's one of the further away kids. And, you know, Miami recruited him at defensive back, but Lord Jesus, I still think that he needs to play offense with that kind of speed and what we're trying to do. I said it from the first moment I saw his video. I really, really, really think that he could be a space player in this offense and really do numbers. I would think maybe he's a guy that you would revisit if you're taking all 5 Palmetto kids. But then again, right now with 5 spots open, we could take all 5 and then forego taking a quarterback, which is recruiting rule number 1, which I hate to do, especially with, you know, you're going to lose 3 quarterbacks in the next 2 years. You know, you have De'Aaron King, who only has 1 year, N'Kosi Perry and Tate Martell. They're eligible for next year as well, but then they're gone. So of the 5, 6 that you have, you're losing 3 of them. Peyton Matoka will probably transfer because he's probably not going to play here. So you're losing 4 of your 6 guys, or 4 of your 5 guys in the next 2 years, we'll call it. So going without a quarterback in this class is not a thing that I really want to do. Also, in terms of like, if we just want to chase down a transfer for next year and transfer and a transfer and a transfer, I love the fact that we got De'Aaron King for this year, but we're not Oklahoma in terms of offense. You know what I mean? We're not going to get a Heisman Trophy winner, #1 draft pick, and then another Heisman Trophy #1 draft pick, and then a Heisman Trophy finalist with 40 games, 30 something games starting experience at Alabama to come in, and he ends up being a draft pick. Like, you're not going to, at least where I sit right now, I don't see that for Miami, especially because if those kind of guys come on the transfer market, they're going to look to go to Oklahoma. So for me, taking all 5 Palmetto kids and not taking a quarterback would be a tough pill to swallow, just because quarterback is its own position where you really got to have a guy. So you could see, I gave a name, so I'm not going to shy away from it, but maybe a Malik Curtis, maybe another commit or 2 off the list. Maybe foregoing a quarterback if, again, those 5 were to commit, or those other 4. Well, technically, let me think about it now. If we have Savion Collins committed, so he's in the group already, and then there's 4 other ones, technically there would still be a spot open. So technically, as we sit here right now, you wouldn't have to drop anybody. You wouldn't have to forego taking a quarterback, because you're only adding 4 of the Palmetto 5 since you already have 1 of them committed, and then you have 1 open slot left. So, yeah. And this is what happens when you ask me questions and we do it live. Like, it takes me a second to think through everything. But, I mean, hey, that's true. So, I mean, yeah, you could pick a commit and maybe, have them go elsewhere. I feel bad that I called that kid's name out now, but whatever. Or you could go without a quarterback, or, anything like that. But, I mean, in terms of, otherwise, maybe a Thomas Davis, outside linebacker DN from Georgia, who's thinking about committing somewhere soon. If you get all 5 or the 4 remaining Palmetto kids, including, a Leonard Taylor at defensive tackle, you keep Savion Collins at defensive tackle, maybe he's a guy, and you already have Jabari Ishmael. And I saw somebody earlier who said he doesn't count as a commit. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I know that his father works at Miami, but he was thinking about going to Oregon as well. So I'm not going to say that, he doesn't fit or he doesn't count or anything like that. Yes, he does. He's his own person. Yes, he absolutely counts. But maybe, yeah, you say Thomas Davis, sorry, but the boat's full. Maybe one of these other guys that you're chasing. And because there are other guys that are not at Palmetto or elsewhere in South Florida that you're chasing. Maybe you tell one of them or 2 of them, appreciate it and everything, but just the way the class came together, we really like what we have. And, we're going to have to, go in a different direction, and just, with the guys that we have and everything. And, so, going a different way, something like that. So, I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it, but then you got to consider, if anybody also wants out of the boat. If any of the commits who are in the class right now decide, hey, maybe I would like to actually evaluate going somewhere else, or, take this opportunity to accept a scholarship offer elsewhere. And that would obviously reshuffle the board and things like that. And things could be malleable in that kind of a way as well. But yeah, as we sit here right now, I mean, so I gave you 5 minutes talking through it. So something like that.
Good show today. As always, I hope you folks I earnestly hope that you appreciate what we have here each and every week with Cam. Once again, the information, the insight, the background, the stories, the perspective, the context, all that he brings to Miami football coverage. Join him at State of the U. Anything in particular to look out for there?
I mean, we're just working through everything that's going on. Obviously, evaluating schedule stuff. We have recruiting stuff. Stefan Cheatham wrote a great piece where he's updating with the South Florida top 25 recruiting. That's up on the website as well. We got player profiles going up. Had one on the Tate Martell this past week. And that got 57 or 60 comments from people, just because he's a lightning rod, obviously. But, not just him. We have other player profiles, position previews, game previews, scheme themes, Beyond the U, where we talk about people in their careers after the University of Miami, whether that be baseball, football, basketball was the most recent one with Shane Larkin, EuroLeague MVP and all-time, he had set the single game scoring record, I want to say, over there. That's Barry Larkin from the Reds in the 90s. That's his son who played at Miami. He was a player of the year here, things like that. So all that and much more that we're working on. Like I said, I'm going to get back, and I was writing a recruiting thing. I need to write these other recruiting things that I usually do annually, like in February, but life got away from me a little bit and it's July, whatever. So yeah, you're doing that, but we have a lot of great stuff going up. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at the State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, and the website is stateoftheu.com. Please come over and fan with us. Wow.
I've had this channel for quite a long time, Cam. This is the first time I've been called the B word. So Ohio State 8 AP poll natties. Boy, that's a lot to spit out for a handle. But he attacks me on this 1970. Okay, in 1970, Ohio State had the consensus #1 team, undefeated. They went to the Rose Bowl and lost by 10 points. Yes, I will go back at some point. I don't know that this is going to happen before the regular season because we're focused on 2020 here. Whatever your handle is, I can't read through the whole thing every time. I will evaluate the 1970 football season to see if a national championship in some way could be argued for Ohio State based on the entirety of the season. But when you go undefeated, you're #1, but then you go out and lose to Jim Plunkett and Stanford by 10 points in the Rose Bowl, you probably don't deserve the national championship. So I'm not claiming 1970 is the national championship for Ohio State. I love going through the years and saying this team could possibly claim one, or this team could have been put in a position, because we know what college football has been in regards to the most controversial sport in both claiming and positioning teams for national championship games in its history. And so I like reviewing because there are teams that did not win national championships who deserved a shot, or were denied a shot, or could claim a share of one, but that team most likely, and I'll review it for sure, top to bottom at some point, and I've said Ohio State 1996 and 2012 could state in a reasonable fashion we deserved it as much as somebody else, but that particular team, you lost your postseason game.
Exactly. I mean, Notre Dame went 10-1. They finished #2. Arizona State went 11-0. They finished #6. And Nebraska won the national championship, and they went 11-0-1. Like, they didn't lose a game. So I'm just, hey, it is what it is.
And they must have won the Orange Bowl because that was the affiliation against the top team.
And they didn't lose, you know what I mean? So, hey, you know, these things happen. But anyway, yeah, I think this was a good show. I enjoyed it, and we'll definitely kick it soon.
Thanks, Cam. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too, guys. We'll see you.
Sunday night at an undetermined time at this point. I appreciate everybody on the line. If you missed part of the show, please just wait for the video to post. And because I saw a lot of comments and questions coming late in the show of topics and questions that Cam had already covered, so just wait for the video to post and you can go back and watch what you missed. But we will have a call-in show at some point on Sunday night. That's why you need to subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and then you can call me and get after me about any topic in college football. We have a good time on Sunday nights in particular right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.